Welcome to the Breakthrough Moments podcast, a podcast where challenges meet opportunities. I'm Harold, and together with my co-host Lasse, we explore stories of innovators, leaders, professionals, and entrepreneurs, and how they turn obstacles into game-changing breakthroughs. Get ready for insights that inspire and lessons that last. Subscribe now, and let's dive into the moments that define success. Welcome to today's episode of the Breakthrough Moments podcast. Today we're honored to speak with Marco Schlimpert, CEO and co-founder of Green Value Chain. Marco is an innovator in the ESG supply chain management, and with a rich background in mechanical engineering and 24 years of industry experience, Marco blends rational methodologies with systemic and intuitive approaches to help companies uncover the root causes of performance issues. His unique perspective on business and leadership emphasizes human-centric methodologies and the power of intuition. Having navigated personal and professional transformations, Marco's story is one of deep insight and groundbreaking methodologies that resonate with businesses looking to achieve sustainable growth and profound change. Welcome to the podcast, Marco.
Hi, Harold. It's a great pleasure to be with you. Thank you for inviting me.
So we've had a bit of a conversation before this where I've learned more about we've gotten to know each other a bit better. But for the people that don't know you and what you do, could you give us a brief background and an introduction?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to do that. With my speech, you see that I speak Austrian accent with a little bit of English. So I'm Austrian. I'm from Vienna. I was raised and born in Vienna. And I always wanted to get to know the world. So my initial thought was to become a pilot. Unfortunately, somehow it didn't come true. So I was thinking, okay, I'm interested in technology. I'm interested in human beings. I'm interested in facts and figures. So what should I do? There is the University of Technology in Vienna. Let's go there and study mechanical engineering and industrial engineering. This is what I've done. And after my studies, I always joined jobs where I could explore the world, United States, Europe, Asia, China, India. And during my career, I was traveling around and connecting with a lot of people of different cultures. And for sure, I was working with mechanical engineering companies and chemical companies. So stuff which was close to my heart. Yeah, and after 24 years, I was thinking, now I'm turning 50. So what I'm going to do next? Another 20 years to work. Do you want to proceed? Or do you want to do something differently? And I decided to do something differently. And that's the reason why I'm here.
Yeah, amazing. And in terms of Green Value Chain and what you do, could you kind of give us a brief, like one line or a paragraph, like what is it that you do currently?
Absolutely. One line paragraph is the European Union has decided the Corporate Sustainable Due Diligence Directive recently in May. And it's all about to protect all the players along the value chain in terms of ESG, so environmental, social, and governance topics. And the origin of that was 2013 when there was this big disaster in the textile industry, Rana Plaza in Bangladesh, where a whole building tumbled down and many, many people passed away and were injured. And a lot of European companies were buying there. And what we are doing at Green Value Chain is to provide pragmatic solution, especially for small and mid-sized companies to cope with this directive. Because when you read this directive for the first time, you might feel overwhelmed. But there is also a pragmatic approach to that, and that's exactly what we're doing. Combining our expertise of the founders, because we are all experienced people, with technology, so that companies can really focus on their core business, that's doing their business, and we help them to upgrade their value chains in terms of ESG principles.
Yeah, I think that's a nice one. I think that encapsulates the most things. So that you've had quite a diverse career. Like you've traveled a lot, you've been all around the world, and I also remember you spoke and you gave that in an intro as well, in terms of you've always had a passion and interest for, can I do work while traveling or exploring the world and exploring different cultures and all of that. But you had a diverse career from like mechanical engineering to a lot of leadership roles in larger companies. Like, how did you experience having this wide experience range from different types of companies, different continents? How do you think that has shaped your current approach to integrating intuition and human-centric methodologies in business, looking at ESG, looking at the optimizing processes? How do you see that the experience you've had has played a role in that?
It has developed over time for sure. And in the beginning, in the very first beginning, I was consultant in a consulting company doing some kind of production engineer, re-engineering, restructuring work. And unfortunately, I really experienced also a lot of turnaround and restructuring projects where I've seen the way how people are dealt with is not something which is nice, because if you're losing the job and if you need to restructure and say goodbye to some of the employees, that's not an easy task. And I always volunteered to do that because I wanted to talk to the people. And I thought always, when there's something not really, let's say, within the comfort zone, just do it. And when I traveled in the world, there was one situation where it was the first time I should have gone to Japan. And I was in India. It was our joint venture partner. And there was a managing director, and I was talking to him. He was a very, very nice guy. And I told to him, TK, I'm now going to Japan in 2 weeks from now. And I know that the Japanese people are very, very noble when it comes to their cultural behavior and how they interact with people. And I quite don't know what I shall do there and how I should behave, not somehow to disappoint those people and not somehow to irritate the people. And then TK was asking me, Marco, what do you think are the key values in the world? And what are your key values in the world? And I said, okay, I want to be a friendly person. So friendliness, respectful person. Then, I would like to be a loyal person. So saying and doing somehow fits together. So I was telling him, friendly, respect. And then loyal, and then honest. Honesty. I think honesty is very, very important. This is when I look at my life, I told him, these are exactly the 4 principles I was applying. And then he said, Marco, and what you have said right now is exactly what everybody in the world wants to. Everybody wants to be dealt with friendly, in a respectful way, honest. And when you say something, that you do it. So loyalty is very important. Just keep that in mind when you go to Japan, and just be authentic who you are. And then I can give you one advice. You just observe a little bit of their culture, how they eat with the sticks and how they behave, and you just imitate a little bit. And once they recognize that you're imitating a little bit, they will see that you respect their culture. They're not awaiting from you that you know everything about the culture, because you're a foreigner. But what they would expect from you is when they give you a fork and a knife, because they know your culture, that you're eating with fork and knife, that you know how to eat with fork and knife. And this was something for me, the first breakthrough moment. I went to Japan and applied exactly those kind of advices, and it went out perfectly. And I came to the conclusion by the end, it's all about the basics, the basic principle of humanity, how we want to deal with each other. And then also observe the other one and showing respect by imitating a little bit. And you don't need to know the whole culture, the whole language. Yes and no, thank you. When you say these kind of words, everybody in a foreign country is loving you then. So these were the breakthrough moment number 1. And then step by step, for sure, I learned more and more. And it was so fascinating to see by the end of the day, in the world, we are all the same. And we just have mantras and metaphors thinking that we're not the same. But at the end, we're all the same. And now coming to a green value chain, I was working in procurement for 14 years internationally, and I've seen a lot of companies. And I've seen companies, the first time when I was in China, it was in 2003, I was there, and it was a foundry. So what we have done in Germany is we have done a commodity strategy, and we said a certain portion of certain castings we want to do global sourcing, the rest we want to strengthen the local supplier base. So it's not only about cost savings at that time. So I went there, and the first time I went, I've seen a foundry. It was just like a disaster for me, because it looked like, the devil on earth. It was like dark everything, and it was stinky, and if you go there and no light, and a lot of dust everywhere. And then I was thinking to myself, wow, I cannot buy there. How can I support these kind of working conditions? And then another guy told me, that was the translator, said, Marco, you can be one thing can be sure. If the quality is okay and you buy there, the money we earn with you will be reinvested into this company. Okay, so I gave the benefit of the benefit of the trust over doubt, and okay, we started business. 1 year later, I came there. Perfect environment, wonderful company, people were working. So this was one positive example, and I've seen a lot of negative examples in every part of the world, also in Europe, also
Mm.
in regions where you might think these are the richest regions in Europe. I've seen how companies and owners and exploiting people and not really reinvesting into people. And if everybody's saying, yeah, in Europe it's not possible because we have the laws, there's a lot of things possible in Europe. So I'd always try to bring in this kind of how can I help the others to
Yeah.
develop, because long-term business is always about people. Business is always about people. It's not
Mm.
about technology. It's about people,
Yeah.
people coming together, handshake agreement, understanding
It
each
is.
other. And how can I help the other people also to advance? Because ethically, it's not possible that our company is earning a lot of money because we're saving a lot at the expense of people suffering. And that's not possible. That was, I couldn't do because my background, I'm coming from a very poor family. My parents were divorced when I was 9 years old. And I always need to turn the coin around. And for me,
Mm.
something, how can we develop each other? So this is the story about to see how many different companies are available and are there in the world. And when then the European directive was announced, I was thinking, my goodness, thank you. This is now really the very great step for European Union as the biggest single economy in the world still
Mm.
to change a transformative a transformative way, the way we're doing business in a way that, yeah, for the well-being of the people and humanity. I mean, this is now a little bit philosophical, but indeed it's all about social peace, and social peace you can only achieve when wealth is created in the world.
Yeah, and also when people are taken care of, like they get what they need. It's human centric, not just product and profit centric. It's
Absolutely.
it is that balance. Like you can't just chase profits at the expense of people, then it's not going to be sustainable. I find that interesting. What was it that made you do the transition as well, like going from mechanical engineering to what you're doing currently? In terms of, has there been any moment where like, okay, I got to do something differently, I need to do something on my own, I need to pursue this passion and interest in the sustainable, the human-centric way? Was there any moment that kind of like, that's when you, that realization was made?
Hmm. There was one very special moment just about 6 years ago.
Mm.
However, there was a lot of steps which led me to these moments. And what I've recognized is, because I was raised by my mother, I have two sisters. I learned how to listen between the lines. You know what I mean? And this helped me so much in business, because
Mm.
in toughest discussions, in toughest circumstances, I always could find a solution where everybody was at ease.
Yeah.
And at some point of time, I had a project in a company in Germany. It was an automotive supplier, and there was this workers' council, a Turkish guy. Everybody hated him, and we could really work together. And very well, we understood each other, and it was very nice cooperation. And everybody looked at us. Why are you working? You're an external guy. You're working with the workers' council guy. I said, yeah. I mean, this is a person who is giving a lot to the company, and I'm working with him because he's a nice guy and he wants to change something. But the way we have been doing this was maybe not the right one. So we need to listen more and be more empathic. So this kind of attitude, to bring this empathy with facts and figures, I always had already somehow in the genes, intuitively.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
then in 2018, there was one moment where I'm father of three kids. I have two daughters now and one son, Nathan, my son. And it was the moment where my son didn't listen to me anymore.
Mm.
Okay, now you could say the son is growing up, it's just natural. But then it progressed over time, and after half a year, three-quarters of a year, it even deteriorated and was getting worse. This implied also some difficulties in the family. So in the family,
Mm.
we had a lot of troubles. And on the other side, I was super successful in professional life. I was leading 5 plants with 2,400 employees, responsible for commercial operations, marketing, technology, the best results in the company,
Mm.
progressing. And I was thinking, wow, on the one hand, professionally, typical manager, super successful, and at home you have troubles. So I went to a psychologist to get some help, because I really wanted to change this situation. It's not about only having more time and spending more time. Something else was there. I don't know what. So I went to the psychologist, And he listened to my story, my family story, and how I was raised up. And then he simply said, Marco, you're not a man.
Mm.
And I was thinking, okay, what do you mean I'm not a man? I'm sorry, I'm a man. I have 3 kids. I mean, how can I display better than I'm a man? So now you're saying I'm not a man. Hey, come on.
Yeah.
And then he was saying, yeah, because it's all about the energy you're displaying.
Mm.
Because you were raised by your mother in times where you would have needed your father, and he was not there over a long period of time. You didn't learn how to absorb this male energy, and male energy is nothing negative or positive. It's just this energy you display when you talk, and your son is just a mirror, and your son is showing this that you're not authentic in this way.
Mm.
And it was a shock for me. It was something where I said, wow, I have one problem, come to the psychologist, I go out, there is then 2 problems. And then I was thinking, hey, nice way of sales pitch, because now he has 2 problems to solve.
Now you need to come back. Yeah.
Yeah, so coming back often. And then I said, okay, solution oriented. Okay, how can I remediate this? He said, you know, there's a monastery in Upper Austria. We have a men's seminar. You join, and there we afterwards everything's fine. I said,
Yeah.
what's a men's seminar? What are I going to do there in a monastery? Sorry, I mean, he said, yeah, we're doing what we call family constellation work. What is this? Just be open mind and experience it and come. And I said, is there any other way to do that? No, that's the only way. Okay, good sales pitch again. So I was thinking, if this is the only way, and if this is really remediating, and I knew this psychologist because he has a very good reputation. I was thinking, okay, I tried. So I went to the monastery, and to cut a long story short, it was about family constellation, and it was about my ancestry line, father, grandfather. It was about appreciation about my ancestry line, and also seeing what they have done, and also appreciating what they have done. And now this is something very, let's say, yeah, maybe critical, because, you know, with my generation, my grandfather was fighting in the Second World War. How would you ever be able to appreciate what people have done there? However, it's not about judging what they have done. It's about appreciating their being, because without their being, I wouldn't be here. So we did these kind of interventions, and it was just amazing, the energy I felt there, and all the experience I had. I cried with tears as I've never done before, and it was like, yeah, my father and my grandfather were lining up behind me. So that's the prerequisite. Psychologists saying a man is a man when the father and the grandfather is lining up behind you. A woman is a woman when the mother and the grandmother is lining behind up her. And you should never mix the roles between father and mother, because otherwise authenticity is gone, and the kid will then have problems. So it was really, really a breakthrough experience for me. So I went home, and from that moment on, my son listened to me. All of a sudden,
Hmm.
he listened to me. And I was so overwhelmed about this as a mechanical engineer, talking always about facts and figures, and, you know, you always rationalize. I think whatever you learn in rationalizing compared to what I've experienced right now, it's just like, wow. I mean, it puts everything into a different perspective. And this was the time I decided I need to learn how to do this kind of constellation work. I want to
Mm.
go into deeper knowledge of what's behind there. So I started training. I'm now a trained constellation guide. I started intuition research, because it's all about intuition and about our intuitive insights and how we are connected. And now a lot of people might think, yeah, it's now going to some kind of metaphysical things. Yeah, I mean, there's also Einstein saying, uh, he was saying, when people live, it's a metaphysical thing when people live. So everything is
Mm.
metaphysics. And it's interesting because I tried to apply this kind of methodology in organization, and it was just groundbreaking differences.
Yeah. I
How you,
remember you told me about that in terms of, for example, in Indonesia with the plant there,
yeah,
how it just transformed everything. Like it tried to had like a list of 50 different possible ways of handling it, but no time, and he did a completely different approach in looking at intuition.
yeah.
Um, I remember you told that story.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's about now for the audience, we need to distinguish when we now talk a little bit more scientifically between
Mm-hmm.
and in systems language, we need to distinguish between complicated systems and complex systems. Complicated systems, you always have input-output relation, which is linear, or where there's a formula you can determine. So you have a deterministic formula which describes input-output relation, and everything's fine. So once you have a problem, you need to understand this problem, and once you have understood the problem, you can fix the problem. So
Mm.
that's complicated system. So every machine is a complicated problem or a complicated system. But then there is complexity, and complex systems are systems where you have input output, even though the circumstances stay the same, but the output could be completely different than before. So there is something within the system which is changing. And I compared like always when, for example, 10, you have an audience of 10 people living in the staying overnight in the same hotel, eating the same food, having the same mattresses, having the same drinks, having going to bed to the same time. So you have all the circumstances the same, yeah, exactly the same. But in the morning, I would bet that everybody of the 10 has a different mood, has a different
Mm-hmm.
experience, and has a different emotion. So you cannot predict. Yeah, so there's no prediction possible. And this is now exactly what complex systems are all about, that you have input output relations which are not predictable. So you cannot have artificial intelligence predicting complex systems. Complex systems are always people. People,
Mm.
and so we need to be more solution oriented there and not problem oriented as we are in machines. There's also circumstances saying when too many complex systems add together, and then it gets complicated. This also could happen, and this is
Yeah.
exactly what happened in Indonesia. We have a plant there, 5 different production lines, and one of the production line so intertwined with the others, and there's also other, let's say, utilities feeding into this production line, and process technologists were saying, and we had a problem, quality problem. So the product which was coming out was not good quality. So what typically companies are then doing is the process engineering is looking at the problem and try to find
Mm.
with 4M, 5M, 5Y methodology in the first step to find potential root causes. Um,
Mm.
yeah, okay, and this technologist found 50 potential root causes. And the second
Oh.
step would be then
Mm.
to explore these root causes in a detailed way, because otherwise it's a complex problem, a complicated problem, sorry. You need to find the root cause to find the solution. So that's how technical people are trained all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was asking the question, how long does it take to explore one of the root causes? One root cause, how long does it? Yeah, between 1 and 2 weeks. And then I said, okay, we have 50 potential root causes. If we are lucky, we find the right one in the first run. So if we're lucky, and if we don't have luck, it's maybe the before latest or the latest. So somewhere in between 2 weeks and 100 weeks, somewhere in between, we will find the root cause. I said that's not good enough. It's too long. So let's try it with 4D mapping and systematic constellation work. So what we have done is, and this is now exactly how it's working, and you need to try it to experience it to believe it. If I'm just telling it like this, everybody would say, hey, come on, that's just like luck or whatever. So what we have done is we have put the root cause on a sheet of paper, each root cause on one sheet of paper, and I asked the person, put these root causes on the paper in this room and flip it in a way that I don't see it. And I called also a second guy. And then we said, okay, now let's go onto the to this sheet of papers and try to sense our bodies, to get
Mm.
sensations in our bodies. And please just observe the difference of sensations in your body when you go from one sheet to the other. And yeah, it can be annoying because you don't feel anything, and all of a sudden you feel something. Something. It could be vertige, it could be goosebumps, it could be heartbeat, it could be you have headache, something like this. And this you need to observe. That's the difference of what you have observed before. And then I was looking at, I had 3 sensations. One was headache, one was heartbeat, and the other one was vertige.
Mm.
Um, and the vertige was, it was written measurement method. Check up the measurement method. 3 days later, they said, Marco, we know why you experienced this vertige because we have complete different measure results between the plant in Indonesia and the plant in Austria. And because it's not right, you were somewhere in between. And
Yeah.
there where I really had headache, it was a certain utility of the plant which should have been remediated. And then the technologist was saying, why this utility plant? No, I understand. It's chain. Because if this plant is working, then condensation is working better. Then retraction of the gases is better. And if the retraction of the gases is better, the product can be washed easily. And because the
Mm.
product can be washed easily, the quality problem will be away.
Yeah.
So, and then I said to the technologists, please tell the Indonesian guys they should look at the condensation plant. And yeah, and 1 week later, the problem was solved. And it was exactly this problem.
Hmm.
And it was a problem where the technologists in the first run would not have never thought that this would be the problem. So maybe, and most probably, this problem would have been ranked very at a later stage because what technological people always look is systems boundary very close to where the product is produced and not outside where the product is produced. And for the audience, this asset where we're looking at was not in the immediate proximity of the production line.
Hmm. That's interesting. Something that typically, in from a mechanical engineering or engineering standpoint, where it's systems, it's facts, it's logic, how that would not be a feasible way to go about it because it would take like 2 to 100 weeks, so more up to a year or more than a year, and then something like this got it sold in a week or a couple of weeks. That's interesting. One of the things that I have in my notes in terms of a question to ask is we talked a lot about keeping a company aligned when it's growing fast, and also ensuring that everyone is on board, that that there's a deep alignment along the teams, which then will allow for sustainable and long-term growth, especially as a company scale. Like, how do you see that companies can ensure that alignment so that it doesn't grow and become a complete mess, which a lot of scale-ups tend to become, and it's a lot of kind of like cleanup work afterwards. So, like, how can we and
Mm-hmm.
companies in general avoid that and
Yeah.
stay aligned?
Before I answer this question, I just want to give some additional information. So over the past
Mm-hmm.
10 years, I was looking at, because when you look at, you're an industrial company, you work in different areas, and at a certain point of time, let's say the technical issues are not really, let's say, challenging. The most challenging thing is always how to do change management. Yeah. And change
Yeah.
management is something which is triggered from outside in. And I was then observing also in the previous company organizational topics, and I was really interested in how the dynamics are there and what needs to be done in order to, let's say, ease up some kind of changes, because there's always resistance.
Mm.
So I was always interested in why is it that there's always this kind of resistance when you do change management. And
Mm.
with the systemic work, with my constellation guide experience and educational background, I experienced that it's always about the source of the problem or the source where everything is coming. And
Mm.
when you now ask me, coming back now to the company, so the first step is always what is the intention of the founders of a company? And even though the company has been founded 100 years, 200 years ago, the intention is still there. It's like, it's like epigenetics. Yeah, there's a science which is talking about epigenetics that you can also inherit some kind of features or some kind of behavioral topics from the past which are not in the genes, but this is existing. So the first question is, what is the intention? Now, if you have a startup and you want to found a company, for me with Green Value Chain, it was very important to bring the co-founders together and to have a common understanding of our intention.
Mm-hmm.
And the intention is number one, what is our purpose? So how do we want to create something? Yeah. The second thing is, and I was asking them directly, what is the exit scenario? So before you start the company, you think
Mm.
already about the exit scenario. Do you want to have an IPO? Do you want to go into a trust fund? How do you want to do that? Because
Yeah.
The exit scenario gives you exactly is an indication of what kind of intent you're having. When you say we want to have an IPO, then it's about money because IPO you get money. And we have seen so many examples of startups going IPO. The owners get hundreds of millions. I exaggerate now, but there is still examples for that. So, and if it's money driven only, then the soul of the company is not really there. Yeah. So the question is what kind of intent do we have? What is our purpose? And then when
Mm-hmm.
you grow, that you attract people who like this purpose and who are willing to contribute. And it's more about this than about technical skills. Because the technical skills everybody can learn. It's all about what you would like to achieve in your life
Mm.
and what you would like to do, because then you can be sure that you can trust that everybody is resonating. And once there's resonance and you take decision based upon your purpose, that's a good decision. And then you also can delegate, yeah, and then you can open up the space so people can unfold. And the only thing you then as a leader and as a company owner need to do is to try to understand what kind of systems and what kind of processes you need, because at some
Mm-hmm.
point of time you need systems and processes in a way that people have clarity, but still can unfold their full potential.
Yeah.
At the end, it's all about three things where people really driving and thriving in companies. It's all about the connectedness. So how am I connected to the company? So can I identify with the intention and the purpose and the vision of the
Mm-hmm.
company? The second one is to have freedom, space of unfolding myself. To have this kind of freedom of acting. Yeah, do have some kind of
Yeah.
space to work. Yeah, and the other one is for sure, can I be successful in what I'm doing? Yeah.
And
So and
mm,
successful means not necessarily in the first place earning money, but having projects successfully or completing
mm,
something successfully. And I think these are very, very important pillars in your startup company in order to be able to fast scale, because otherwise it's not possible. How can you make sure you never can make sure in a very fast paced world that you have all systems and processes in place at the time when you need the people, when you just hire them based upon the technical skills and not about their potential and what they would like to achieve in their lives, and you don't
yeah.
have a purpose.
Yeah.
And now putting this question also to existing companies. So for existing companies, which have been existing already a long time ago, when they hire people, it's all about how can we fit or how can we bring together the company's intent and purpose with the
Mm,
person's intent and purpose. And if there is let's say, a certain match, then you can be sure that this person will really thrive and will be engaged and will be ready to go the extra mile also for the company as we
yeah.
sometimes need. And I'm saying this because, as of my perspective, this is one of the biggest challenges we are facing, that the engagement rates in companies are so low. And if you look at the Gallup Workplace Report 2024, it's about, I think, worldwide 23% of people are engaged. In Europe, it's about 16%. In Austria, it's 10%. So let's say 1 to 1.5% out of 10 are thriving in their jobs.
Yeah.
This is something now we can ask ourselves, do we want to accept this or do we want to change this?
Mm,
And I have my personal purpose. That's really, I was thinking about my personal purpose, and one of them, my big five of life I did. And one
yeah.
of them is I would like to bring leadership to another stage where people feel engaged and spread this message into the world with
Mm-hmm.
pragmatic solutions. Coming from the industry, having experiences that it's working. So it's not something like theory and I'm a coach who has never led an organization. No, it's coming from the industry proof, and it's peculiar, and it's working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I also read the statistics from Gallup and the engagement rate among employees in different companies, and it's going like this. It's going down, 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 and down. And you mentioned that, or I've talked with a lot of people as well in terms of it's the culture, it's the leader, it's the how do you see people, how do you value people. But how do you think a leader should approach this in terms of what paths and what alternatives does leadership have and management have to turn it around? Because like if less than 20% of the staff is engaged, that is going to have a direct impact on top line, bottom line, everything. Like what can leaders do?
Yeah, I mean, let me also start with one philosophical approach. Many of us, so number one, I was studying at university and last semester, leadership and strategic change at the University of
Mm.
Technology, a wonderful course of Wolfgang Güttl. And when you read then in the books, what is the scientific definition of leadership? And
Yeah.
leadership is a social intervention of a person to other persons to influence the other persons in their behaviors in order to achieve a common goal, because otherwise the people would behave differently.
Mm.
And then when I was reading this, I was thinking, oh, wow, this is a very nice definition, but it's more Machiavelli. There's Niccolo
Yeah.
Machiavelli, who is saying, I do everything in order to achieve my goal. And yeah, everything which serves this purpose to achieve my goal is fine.
Yeah.
This is what we see a lot of times. This is what we see 99% of the times in politics, in business life. And then there's another philosopher, Kant, Immanuel Kant, very famous philosopher in Germany. He said, treat other people in their own purpose.
Mm.
So make sure that other people, when you interact with them, can fulfill their purpose.
Yeah.
So that's serving the people. It's more the servant style. And this is something which is, yeah, unfolding people, let's say creating an environment where you're not interested in your goals, but in the goals of the others, because if the other is achieving the goal, you will be successful.
Yeah.
Many
Mm.
people think I need to be successful. That's the reason I have my goals. I need to achieve my goals no matter what. And that's the reason why I fight. And, there's politics. No, the
Mm.
question is, okay, we have a goal as a company. I have a goal. My attitude was always forget about my personal goal.
Mm.
I never was thinking about my management by objective goals. I was reading them, understanding them. So, okay, fine. I put them aside. Let's see them 1 year later. Now I know the direction where we need to go to the company. I make the others successful, because if the others are successful, I will be successful.
Yeah.
And I think this is the attitude turning point where you can say, there you can make the change.
Mm.
And the second point then is it creates, I call it laziness. Just imagine you're a leader and you always need to do everything because you think you can do it better than your employees. Then you don't have time anymore. Then you're always working. You're right in a rat race, in a hamster wheel. But just imagine you can delegate all this stuff to your employees. Just imagine. And you only have a fraction of things to do. This is what I call laziness. Because imagine if you think that you are doing all the work for your own because you think you are the best and you can do it much better than the employees,
Mm-hmm.
and you just delegate, let's say, the small stuff, it doesn't work because then you're in a rat race, in a hamster wheel, and you never can turn out. So, to be lazy, you need to invest a lot of time and efforts in order to, yeah, engage people and unfold the full potential of the people,
Mm.
yeah, so that they are capable at a certain point of time to do the job what you believe you can be doing even better. And this requires always, when the mistake is taken, that you're not angry about the mistake, but you say, okay, what is the learning opportunity about? And not also saying who did the mistake, sondern what can we learn out of it? And
Mm.
what can we do better? And please, if you need support from my side, come to me early on when you think that it's necessary, because when it's too late, I cannot change anything neither. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
if you want me to support you, come at the right time. I trust you fully. And if there is any issue facing and need some advice, please, I'm ready to help you. I think
Mm-hmm.
this attitude, and this is again intent, attitude, who am I and how do I want to display myself? And now, if you would ask me, has this changed over the course of time? No, it hasn't changed, this kind of way of doing. The only way which has changed is that we see a lot of leadership literature, the best of, and a lot of different stuff. But when we come back, who we are, we're just a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And the human being wants to learn. We have this exploratory system in us. And the other point is we fear. Yeah,
Yeah.
so fear system and exploratory system. These are the two systems which are guiding us since we exist as human beings. And why is it important? Fear is important that we run away when the tiger is coming so that we survive. And curiosity is important so that we develop. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here and have this over internet. Unfortunately, we are currently in a situation that we constantly create fear, and we should not have fear because there is no fear. I mean, who of us in the, let's say, Western Hemisphere or in the industrial world needs to fear a tiger? Nobody of us. So we don't need to run away anymore. But we constantly create this fear in companies. So people are frozen all the time or running away. That means people are not engaged or quitting the company because we apply all the time the language of fear. And the language of fear is this if-then relation. If you do this, then you get that. So if you achieve this goal, you get the bonus. If you achieve that goal, you get promoted. If you don't do that, we lose the customer.
Yeah.
So this is exactly where we create fear. And we should stop it. Stop creating fear immediately. Yeah, because that's so powerful that you then really unfold people's potential.
So instead of using the if this then that, what can we do? Like, what's the alternative approach other than just helping someone reach their goal?
The alternative approach. So, what do we want to achieve together? What is our common purpose? What is our goal? What are we burning for? And we try our best, and then we observe. We take intervention, say observe, and say interesting. So apparently, this approach didn't work to keep the customer. So it is about not to keep the customer. So what can we do about this? And bring the people together and communicate. So the leader's task is much more to, let's say, build up this network of these people, to observe, to have these empathic skills of listening and also observing and approaching and asking, how can I help you? And this custom would be very important for us, for achieving our goals and targets. And these targets will help us to do something else. So how can I support you that we keep it? And is there any possibility to keep this? So this kind of approach. Or the other approach is like learning targets. Learning targets are so powerful. So like if you want to increase the overall equipment efficiency rate of the plant, OEE, it's always in industry. Say increase OEE from 86 to 89% or 92. I just say whatever, it's about, okay, as a leader, you need to think, you need to increase the OEE for sure because you want to increase output. It gives you additional sales revenues. So what are the main triggers? What are the main levers for that? For example, setup changes. Setup changes I've seen in my facts and figures analysis are the biggest losses in the previous year. Plus then there was some kind of scheduled maintenance work and maybe some unplanned maintenance work. Okay, so how can I make it better? We should deploy, let's say, a person who's doing root cause analysis on this plant. And then with the root cause analysis, we could have avoided, let's say, 20% or 30%, a big portion of unplanned shutdowns. That's one thing. The other thing is, planning and scheduling is also very important. So if we take the accuracy of planning and scheduling in a higher way, then we can also increase the OEE. However, what is the tool for that? It's the XYZ analysis. The exact XYZ analysis would be a wonderful tool to apply there. Okay, now I give the learning target for this line, dear production manager, line number 11, please conduct on an annual basis or let's say on a monthly basis at least one root cause analysis and on a monthly basis one XYZ analysis as an example. So that people get a learning target.
Yeah.
Once you do that, you see the effect. And if you see after, let's say, 3-4 months that the effect are not really coming, then as a leader, you need to think about other tools where people should learn about, apply them directly. And, the figures, whether it's an OEE or an EBIT, EBITDA, whatever, is just a result of what you have done before. And please provide a target or let's say a goal of what you would like people to do and not what the result is. Because if you give the target on the result, you create fear. But if you if you give a target on what people could do, you give learning targets where people unfold themselves. And that's just as simple. The only difficulty is there. You as a leader need to think about how to translate the facts and figures target into
Yeah.
a learning target. And that's the challenge. And that's the reason why you're a leader. So that's where you're paid for.
Yeah. That's interesting because I've heard plenty of time like the people and leadership is what makes and breaks the company. Like a company isn't anything without the people, and a lot of people. And I attended this leadership mastermind that was over a year, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, and they had this one quote which were kind of like they repeated it time and time and time again, and it is, and he the expert that held this mastermind, he said, I told this to a group of 200 economists, and he said like if leadership was about KPIs, even economists could be great leaders. So and they weren't very happy about him saying that, but the point stands that you can't really lead with KPIs. And I like the fact that you kind of reshaped it to, instead of talking, saying you have to get this, if else this is going to happen. So there's a consequence of not doing something, and then translating that into, okay, this is how you can learn. This is how you can achieve more. This is what the actions that will compound will achieve and fulfill the milestones and the KPIs and the goals that we have, and looking at it that way. But I think it's easy. The easy way out for leaders is just say, "Schmack, here's the KPI. This is the goal. Go and get it." Instead of taking that additional time and
Mhm.
thinking it through, how can I motivate by learning targets, or this is what you want to learn or what you want to explore, and here are tasks and things that you can do to get there, and then thinking more in second order consequence, that these are the first step actions and the second order consequence of those are fulfilling the milestones and objectives and the goals that we have as a company.
Mm.
I think you put it very, very nicely.
And Harald, I just want to add something because now maybe some of the audience might think, okay, that's very nice in theory, and how to do that in practical life? Because I'm so overwhelmed with my workload. I just
Mm-hmm.
have two questions. Question number one is, look at your job description and think about how much of your time you dedicate in your work is really fulfilling your original job description.
Mm.
I got an answer from one of the commercial operating officer. He told me 4 hours, and the rest is just something else. Okay, and there you have already time of saying, okay, I don't do this other stuff, and I just create some time. It doesn't go from one day to the other. It goes, maybe it takes some time. And the easiest way is just block one day in your calendar, and you only accept invitations or meetings or whatever when it's really serving what you really want to do. That's number one.
Mm.
And the other trigger point is, especially for operations community out there and listening to us, is whenever you have a safety topic, a real big safety topic. So what are you doing? You stop. You push the stop button. You stop.
Mm.
That's safety. Then stop also means you look at the situation, you look at the technology, at the organization, and the personal protective equipment. Stop. So stop now your time and apply
Mm.
methodology. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't need to be hard, but I think we just haven't been trained or taught how to think this way. And I really like that we were able to go into that topic and make it that specific for the listeners and the viewers of this episode. In the essence of time, I have one final question. And I gave you a bit of a heads up for this before, because it's a quite big question, but I'd like to end the podcast with this. And it goes like this. If you could get an answer to one question related to what you do and your business, Marco, what would it be and what would you like to know?
I would like to know whether we as leaders and humanity can create this consciousness and awareness of doing things differently and becoming more easy by doing this. And how long does it take? And whether we can get this kind of consciousness.
And by consciousness, or leveled up consciousness, what do you define by that? If people kind of like didn't
Seeing,
get it immediately.
to seeing that the ways we have been doing so far are not working anymore, and that exactly what we have been talking about,
Mm-hmm.
create a new way of engagement, that we are ready for that, and that we unfold the potential of the people rather than bringing them down. Because what we currently experience is, again, some kind of a wave of industrial layoffs as a first answer to the problem, which in my opinion should not be the case, because
Mm.
It's all about decisions we have taken in the past. And this is, the consciousness level that not the money is number one, but people are number one. And the way we interact with people and the way we engage people and the way we unfold the potential of the people lead to profitability. So this kind of consciousness, I would like to know can we create this kind of consciousness, and when is this consciousness there? How long does it take?
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Basically, when do we move from a Machiavellian me first, money first type of leadership and way of thinking into people first, supporting and aiding the people, because the monetary benefit and the results is a second order consequence of putting the people first.
Absolutely. And there are
Yeah,
some
I
companies
like that.
already there, and they're very successful. And yeah, I hope that we can spread the word and spread the
Yeah.
actions.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's a good way to end it. And if someone wants to reach out to you, Marco, maybe they have an answer to this, maybe they want to spar with you about it, learn more about what you do, and the green value chain. Where can they reach in? Where can they learn more?
Where you can reach me on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
It's the easiest way. Just go to my profile, Marco Schlimpert on LinkedIn, and there is everything, every contact data. You can also directly book a one-to-one meeting with me, 30 minutes to explore more for game-changing transformation success, but also for sure value chain transformation. I'm really happy to talk to you. So looking forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, perfect. We're going to ensure that the links are down in the comments on YouTube. But Marco, it's been a pleasure to have you on. It's been an inspiring topics, and I really think that what we discussed today is very important and should be put quite high on the list of priorities, especially for aspiring entrepreneurs, for the future scale-ups and existing entrepreneurs and founders and C-level and owners. So I appreciate you taking the time, and I appreciate you having you on.
Thank you very much, Harold, for having me, and really appreciate it. I wish you all the best and a great day. Thank you so much.